Welcome to Episode 7 of our PMI-ACP certification study series. In this episode, we'll cover continuous improvement and exam strategy, which falls under Domain 7 of the exam content outline. Question 52. What is the sprint retrospective and why is it called the heart of agility? Take a moment to think about your answer before we continue. Domain 7 covers continuous improvement weighted at 9% on the exam. This is the smallest domain by weighting, but it represents a principle that makes all other practices sustainable. The sprint retrospective is the primary mechanism for Kaizen, the Japanese philosophy of continuous incremental improvement. It's the event where the team inspects how they work and identifies ways to improve. Why is it called the heart of agility? Because without reflection and adaptation, processes become stagnant. Teams continue doing what they've always done, even when it no longer serves them. The retrospective provides regular, structured opportunities to step back, examine the process, and adjust. The retrospective happens at the end of each sprint after the sprint review. While the review inspects the product, the retrospective inspects the team's process, practices, and relationships. The whole team participates, including the Scrum Master. The output is concrete improvement actions. This is critical. Retrospectives that generate discussion, but no action create cynicism. The team must leave with specific, assignable action items that will be implemented in the next sprint. The prime directive, formulated by Norm Kurth, creates psychological safety for honest reflection. It states, regardless of what we discover, we understand and truly believe that everyone did the best job they could, given what they knew at the time, their skills and abilities, the resources available, and the situation at hand. This framing is essential because improvement requires honest examination of what went wrong. If team members fear blame, they'll hide problems. If they worry that admission will affect performance reviews, they'll stay silent. The prime directive explicitly removes blame, creating space for genuine learning. For exam scenarios, the retrospective is the answer when questions ask where process improvements should be discussed. It's not the daily scrum, which focuses on immediate coordination. It's not the sprint review, which focuses on the product. It's not sprint planning, which focuses on upcoming work. Process improvement belongs in the retrospective. Esther Derby and Diana Larson's structure for retrospectives provides a proven framework. Set the stage, creates psychological safety, and checks everyone in. Gather data, collects facts, metrics, and observations about the sprint. Generate insights, explores why things happened as they did. Decide what to do, identifies specific improvement actions. Close the retrospective, wraps up, and gathers feedback on the meeting itself. Question 53. What retrospective formats should you know for the exam? Take a moment to think about your answer before we continue. Different retrospective formats serve different situations. Varying formats also prevent staleness. Teams that use the same format every sprint often experience declining engagement. The Starfish format uses 5 categories: keep, stop, start, more of, and less of. This provides more nuance than simple start, stop. More of captures things the team does but should do more intensively. Less of captures things the team does but should reduce. This granularity often surfaces insights that binary categories miss. For example, code review might appear in more of rather than either start or keep. The team does code review, but they should do more of it or do it more thoroughly. The Starfish captures this nuance. The sailboat format, also called speedboat, uses a nautical metaphor. The boat represents the team or project. Wind represents propelling forces, what's helping us move forward. Anchors represent dragging forces, what's holding us back. Rocks represent risks, dangers ahead we should watch for. The island represents our goal. This visual metaphor often helps teams think more creatively than text-based formats. It also explicitly includes forward-looking risk identification alongside backward-looking reflection. Mad, sad, glad focuses on emotional experience. Team members identify what made them angry, what made them sad, and what made them happy during the sprint. This format surfaces emotional health. which technical formats might miss. It's particularly useful when team morale seems to be suffering. 4Ls covers liked, learned, lacked, and longed for. What did we like about this sprint? What did we learn? What were we lacking? What did we long for that we didn't have? This format emphasizes learning and growth alongside problem identification. For the exam, understand that all formats share common purposes: creating space for reflection, surfacing observations, identifying improvements, and generating action items. The specific format matters less than executing it well. One common anti-pattern is the retrospective that identifies the same problems sprint after sprint without resolution. This happens when action items aren't followed through or when the team lacks authority to make needed changes. If this scenario appears on the exam, the answer involves ensuring action items are specific, assigned, and tracked, and perhaps escalating systemic issues that the team cannot address alone. Question 54. What is value stream mapping and how does it support continuous improvement? Take a moment to think about your answer before we continue. Value stream mapping, or VSM, is a lean technique for analyzing and improving the flow of work from request to delivery. It's a powerful tool for identifying waste and improvement opportunities. The process begins by mapping the current state. Document every step in how work moves from customer request to customer value. Include formal steps like development and testing, but also include waiting times, handoffs, and approval queues. For each step, note key metrics. How long does it take? How long does work wait before this step? What percentage of work requires rework? This data reveals where time is actually spent. Then classify each step. Value-added activities directly produce something the customer cares about. The customer would be willing to pay for this step. Coding a feature the customer requested is value-added. Non-value-added activities don't directly produce customer value, but may be necessary. Regulatory compliance, internal approvals, and certain documentation fall here. Pure waste activities add no value and aren't necessary. Waiting in queues, unnecessary handoffs, and redundant approvals are waste. The insight from value stream mapping is often surprising. Most inefficiency isn't in the value-added steps. Development might take 3 days, but the feature waits 2 weeks for approval before development starts, and another week for deployment after development ends. The 3 days of work is embedded in 5 weeks of elapsed time. Improvement focuses on reducing waste and wait time. Can approval be faster or eliminated? Can handoffs be reduced? Can the deployment process be streamlined? Often, dramatic lead time improvements come from addressing the white space between steps rather than speeding up the steps themselves. For exam scenarios, value stream mapping is appropriate when teams face long lead times, when work seems to stall without clear cause, or when process improvement efforts need direction. It provides data-driven insight into where improvement will have the most impact. One concept from VSM is process cycle efficiency, calculated as value-added time divided by total lead time. If development takes 3 days but total lead time is 3 weeks, process cycle efficiency is about 15%. This means 85% of time is non-value added. Even modest improvements in wait time yield significant results. Question 55. What is the pre-mortem technique and when should it be used? Take a moment to think about your answer before we continue. While post-mortems analyze failures after they occur, a pre-mortem imagines failure before it happens. This prospective hindsight helps teams identify risks that might otherwise go unspoken. The technique works as follows. Before the project or sprint begins, the team imagines that the effort has failed completely. Looking back from this imagined future, they brainstorm what could have caused the failure. What went wrong? Why did we fail? This framing produces different insights than directly asking what could go wrong. When asked to predict risks, people often feel pressured to be optimistic or may not want to appear negative. When asked to explain an imagined failure, people feel freer to voice concerns. The pre-mortem surfaces risks that team members might be reluctant to raise. A developer might not say, "I don't think we can deliver this in time," but might say, "One reason we failed was underestimating the complexity." The imagined failure creates permission to express doubt. For exam scenarios, the pre-mortem is appropriate at project initiation, before major milestones, or when the team is about to embark on something risky. It's a proactive technique for risk identification, complementing reactive techniques like root cause analysis. The output of a pre-mortem is typically a list of potential failure modes and ideally mitigation strategies. If integration with the legacy system proved impossible is identified as a potential failure mode, the team might schedule an early spike to investigate integration feasibility. Question 56. What are the key PMI-isms to remember for exam success? Take a moment to think about your answer before we continue. To pass the PMI-ACP, you must calibrate your thinking to PMI's idealized view of Agile. When in doubt on a question, apply these heuristics. First, servant leadership. If an option involves commanding, directing, assigning, or solving problems for the team, it's likely wrong. The correct answer usually involves facilitating, enabling, coaching, supporting, or asking. The leader's job is to serve the team, not to manage them. Second, collaboration over everything. Face-to-face is better than email. Conversation is better than documentation. Collaboration is better than negotiation. If you're choosing between an option involving direct interaction and an option involving written communication, choose interaction. Third, transparency without exception. Make work visible. Don't hide bad news. Update information radiators to reflect reality. Share problems early. Teams that hide issues until they explode lose trust. Teams that surface problems promptly and work collaboratively on solutions build lasting credibility. Fourth, team ownership. The team owns their estimates. Nobody outside the team can tell them how long something takes. The team owns the how. They decide the technical approach, the design, the implementation. The product owner owns the what and why. Scrum Master owns the process. Respect these boundaries. Fifth, value first. ROI dictates priority. We build what's valuable, not just what's easy. We confront risk early rather than deferring it. We deliver increments frequently to generate feedback and early value. Sixth, embrace change. Change is not a defect, it's a competitive advantage. Plans adapt based on learning. Requirements evolve based on feedback. Rigid adherence to initial plans when circumstances have changed is an anti-pattern. Seventh, sustainable pace. Overtime is not a solution. Burning out the team creates defects, turnover, and declining productivity. If deadlines can't be met at sustainable pace, scope must be adjusted. For exam day tactics, remember these practical strategies. You have 180 minutes for 120 questions, which is 90 seconds per question. If a question is confusing, mark it and move on. Don't let one difficult question consume time needed for others. Read the last sentence first. Many questions have long scenarios but simple actual questions. Reading "What should the Scrum Master do?" first helps you parse the scenario efficiently. Identify the domain. Ask yourself what domain this question is testing. Is it stakeholder engagement, team performance, adaptive planning? This frames the correct set of principles to apply. When two answers seem correct, look for the one that's more agile. The answer that involves more collaboration, more transparency, more team ownership is usually more correct. The answer that involves more process, more documentation, more management oversight is usually less correct. Watch for words that signal wrong answers: mandate, require, assign, escalate, document. Watch for words that signal right answers: facilitate, coach, collaborate, empower, support. Question 57. What final preparation advice will help you succeed on exam day? Take a moment to think about your answer before we continue. As we conclude this series, let me offer guidance for the final stretch of your preparation. First, know the Agile Manifesto cold. The 4 values and 12 principles are foundational. Many questions can be answered correctly by applying these principles even without remembering specific technique details. If you're unsure between options, ask which one better embodies the manifesto values. Second, understand the 7 domains and their relative weights. Value-driven delivery at 20% deserves more study time than continuous improvement at 9%. Prioritize your preparation accordingly. Third, practice with scenario-based questions. The PMI-ACP is not a memorization test. It tests application of principles to situations. Practice questions teach you to recognize what's being tested and how to reason through scenarios. Fourth, know when each technique applies. Planning poker versus affinity estimation, burn down versus burn up charts, 5 whys versus fishbone. The exam tests whether you know which tool fits which situation. Fifth, understand the roles deeply. What does the product owner own? The scrum master, the development team? Where are the boundaries? What happens when someone steps outside their role? Sixth, internalize servant leadership. This concept appears across all domains. The leader who serves the team, who removes obstacles rather than directing work, who asks, "What do you need?" rather than saying, "Here's what you'll do," represents the Agile ideal. On exam day itself, manage your energy. The 3-hour duration is a marathon, not a sprint. Pace yourself. Take mental breaks when needed. Don't dwell on questions you've already answered. Trust your preparation. By the time you sit for the exam, you've studied the content, practiced scenarios, and internalized the mindset. Trust that preparation. Second-guessing every answer consumes time and energy. For difficult questions, eliminate obviously wrong options first. Often you can reduce 4 options to 2. From there, apply the PMI-isms we discussed. Which remaining option is more collaborative, more transparent, more respectful of self-organization? After the exam, remember that the credential validates knowledge, but real skill comes from practice. Apply what you've learned to your actual work. Facilitate better retrospectives. Support your team as a servant leader. Build quality practices into your process. The exam measures understanding. Your daily practice builds mastery. This concludes our 4-hour PMI-ACP certification study series. You now have comprehensive coverage of all 7 domains, practical exam strategies, and a deep understanding of the Agile mindset that underlies every question. Apply the principles, practice the techniques, and approach the exam with confidence. Good luck on your certification journey. That concludes Episode 7. We covered 6 important concepts. Take time to review these questions and answers and practice applying these concepts to scenario-based questions. In the next episode, we'll continue exploring the PMI-ACP exam domains.